Alright, welcome back to Facts and Smiles. This is Miles.
And this is Max.
And get ready to make some stacks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. We'll put Miles on that one. Yeah. Alright, so Pieper. Leisure, the basis of culture. So I guess we'll just go with, we'll start, I think the focus should be the first essay, because obviously that's the name of the book. And the second essay I think is good, but I think the more interesting essay is the first one.
So in the preface to the first essay, actually there was like a thing written by a different author who praised Pieper on how, unlike other, he departs from the typical German philosophy of using tons of really big words to say nothing at all, and like says things like Heidegger, like Hegel's the best example. And he actually speaks clearly. And I thought that was pretty true for the first essay. For the philosophical act, there are some really iconic passages. There were some where he's just really, he sounds like.
Well, that's it's what happens when you get, when you ask the question. I think the first question he asks in the second essay is, what does it mean to philosophize? You're begging for the big words to start coming.
That's just a nightmare.
Yeah. So, anyway, so when he starts off the first essay, the first part, I guess, just the introduction and the importance of being at leisure. And he sets the stage by talking about how, at present, aftermath of World War II, there's this culture of total work, probably also embodied or catalyzed by Marx, right? So the idea that man exists to work and that the purpose of life is just to work, and everything in life that's worthwhile is all based on utility. So if there's no utility to it, if there's no benefit to society or to oneself that's concrete, then it's useless. Basically, if something is useless, it's not worthwhile.
Yep. And he contrasts the ideas of so there's basically the predominant view is the living to work idea, where it's that's the grind set, I love being in the Rocky cutscene with the working to live idea, which is kind of the more it's the more Marxist or socialist idea, where it's we have to work, but it's not the ultimate end of man. And he's actually, we're working so that we can have leisure.
Right.
Working is what we have to do, but the leisure is the end in and of itself.
Right, because you contrast that with the idea that work breaks, or Sunday, or days of rest, those are all just meant for us to get energy so that we can work. And he's saying, no, the pinnacle is leisure in the contemplative life. I think he even says that we don't even work for the sake of leisure, but our whole life should be focused on the contemplative aspect of life, and then when we work, it'll be fueled by that. I think much later he talks about how work without leisure is just, we'll get into that later, idleness, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he's setting the stage, and then we can get into, part two. So this I think is interesting. So I think all of part two is him talking about knowledge as a result of labor and knowledge as a result of contemplation. And the idea that's prevailing currently is that, you have to work for knowledge, right? That it's there and we have to uncover it. And then he says, actually, some knowledge can just be given to us and we reflect on it and contemplate it. We just receive it. I think his argument is really interesting, so we can get into that if you want.
Yeah, he's talking about the medieval ideas of ratio and intellectus. And the ratio is our modern understanding of knowledge, where it's equivalent with work. And this even this is ingrained into our information theory definition of knowledge. Right. It's about how much work did you do, or
right, the amount of work that goes into the information is what makes the information worthwhile.
Yes.
More work equals better information.
Yeah, and literally on a computational level, this is how we define it.
Right.
So he's really departing from this, which makes sense because what he's talking about is not computational.
Yes. So he begins by talking about, so when we see a rose, what are we doing? And he says, if we observe it or study it, then that's the ratio, right? That's working to uncover what's behind this rose. But if we just behold it, take it in, receive it. That's akin to the intellect, which is contemplation, right? Which is just leisurely reception of that which is, you could say, I guess.
Okay. I feel like we've all experienced the ratio and the intellectus.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth asking, is there really such thing as just perceiving? Because
I think so.
we already know that there isn't, all observations are contingent on
theory-laden.
They're theory-laden.
Right.
They're contingent on explanation.
Right.
So, that begs the question, what is the intellectus?
You know, it's a good point, right? Because even when I was reading this, I was thinking, okay, wait a second. I did the test myself, right? I mean, if I see this candle, and I'm pretty sure I am just receiving it. I think he's right when he says it's only when I start studying it, examining it, trying to figure out, okay, maybe how much it weighs or the angle it has to my eyes or the color or whatever, when I really try to go in depth, then that's when I'm trying to work to discover what's going on with it. Mm-hmm. I think for the most part, when I'm not looking at you or I grab my can, I'm not really, I don't feel like I'm working to see anything, right? Sure. But if I want to see, okay, what's Miles' expression right now? Is he, engaged? Is he bemused? Then maybe I'm making more notes, right? But I think if I'm just looking to you while I'm talking and just back and forth, I think I'm more just receiving your expression that I am working to uncover.
Yeah.
And I get, right, because biologically speaking, there's no such thing as not working to receive information, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it would be helpful because I was thinking that in terms of ideas, I think this has merit because I was thinking specifically morality. I know people today, people like Alex O'Connor, they'll talk about how morality is pretty much just based on emotion, right? It's just, we think this is wrong because it makes us feel a bad way, or we don't like how it makes us feel sad or wrong or evil. But I think that would be, he even talks about emotion, I forget where, I'll try to find it, but I think that's actually just our perceiving of that which is, right? We all just know that things like murder, rape, pedophilia are wrong, but we don't really have to work to figure that out, right? I don't have to, go through some sort of logic to figure out why pedophilia is wrong. And in fact, I'm sure someone can make a logical argument or some sort of argument as to why it's actually okay, right? Mm-hmm. But I think for the most part, things like morality, we just know instinctively. Well, not instinctively. I think he would say we know. It's the morality, maybe to go back to C.S. Lewis and the Tao, right? There is this reality that we behold that just kind of is given to us, right? We just kind of just know that certain things are wrong. We don't have to work for it. We could work for it.
I think there's quite a bit, pedophilia, we all know it's wrong. Right. But in other cultures, there are examples of cultures where it's doesn't matter. We're gonna get our, marry our daughter off, our 8-year-old daughter off to this 30-year-old guy. Right. And that's a moral good because it strengthens our family or something in some way. Mm-hmm. And they think, that's parents doing that to their daughter. Obviously they don't think that's horrible for the daughter. But we can say they're wrong objectively. And that's, I like the idea of the Tao. I think that comes in, that's a valid use where we can all say no, that is objectively wrong. That's not the way to do it. Mm-hmm. But again, I think the reason we can have this just guttural instinctual feeling of we can obviously say pedophilia is wrong. Mm-hmm. I think that's mostly cultural. But what if it's so easy? We've got this category.
What if it's? I see what you're saying. What if it's not so much cultural as it is a proper? The basis of culture. What if it's the proper cultivating of the intellect? What if it's the What if the knowledge of the quote unquote intuitive knowledge of something being wrong is a result of a properly cultivated intellect?
I think it is.
And not right. So I think that would be with his point, right? So it's if you live in a culture where you're taught to see morality a certain way, I think even C.S. Lewis did talk about this, right? You'll be blinded to see the truth or true reality of morality, right? Because your intellect isn't properly formed. You haven't read, to go to John Senior, you haven't read the good books, right? You haven't been brought up in a milieu in which these ideas are brought to the forefront, right? And so maybe the knowledge of pedophilia being wrong, maybe it's not so much a result of the intellect, but maybe a properly cultivated intellect is what gives us the ability to intuitively see something like that is just wrong without having to reason as to why it's wrong. Does that make sense?
There might be something to that. I think, so what came to mind when he was talking, just hit me, just passively,
right?
When he was talking about the ratio and intellectus was, first of all, at first I was like, well, no, there's no intellectus. Like, that's just like hidden ratio. Like, we're actually doing the computation. We just don't know about it.
Sure.
But later on, he talked about how, like, the poets, like the great thinkers, like even the great scientists. He doesn't say that because he doesn't understand science. But we'll get into that.
I was gonna say you probably were fuming him saying like science gives us an answer and there it is.
Oh, it's so bad.
I could see you just writing in pain.
I wrote it down here.
Just writing in pain. Yeah.
Bro thinks scientific questions can be fully answered. Well, now.
Yeah, that's much later. We'll get into that. Yeah.
But the ratio and intellectus, like. And I still do think that's kind of true to some extent, like where we don't do anything other than ratio, and you can kind of hide the ratio, and call it intellectus. But when he's talking about how like these great geniuses who come up with these things, like they often don't take credit for it. Because they didn't. It doesn't feel like they did any work for it,
right.
And it does kind of strike as like a divine inspiration, like someone like Einstein in his eureka moment,
right.
Or he had some that were much more ratio, like where he like works for literal decades, I think, to get mathematical equations that work for general relativity. But for special relativity, it's a eureka moment. It just hits him one day. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that if Pieper is technically right in saying that that's a gift from God. Like it's literally God like striking you with inspiration. Because I mean, where else? Like we don't have a good explanation for where the conjectures come from. The refutations are much easier to explain.
Right.
But I don't think it's like my theory about ratio and intellectus is that the ratio is it's more refutation heavy and the intellectus is more conjecture heavy. But they're both just conjecture.
So I think something which is worth talking about is him saying that. So this idea of the intellect and the intellectus and the ratio would be, he talks about Kant. Kant would be a huge fan of the ratio, where
he was. Yeah,
knowing is activity, whereas intellectus, knowing is passive perception, you could say. And I think that's more, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I think that's more akin to things like pedophilia, right? You don't have to actively work to figure out pedophilia is wrong. It is just kind of, that's wrong. And that can be a result of your culture raising you to tell you that's wrong, but you never had to do work to figure out that it was wrong, right? You don't need to, what's the word? Like, it's different between someone saying, okay, why is pedophilia wrong? You might have to work to figure that one out, right? Like why? And you give them reasons and logic and boom, here's my answer. But just knowing that it's wrong, you don't have to work for that. It's just, it's wrong.
Could you say that culture has already, like, in past societies, we've already done the why work, and it's like through the great computer of human existence, we've figured out, okay, pedophilia is objectively wrong. We figured it out.
I would say no, because he talks about, I think it's in the second essay, that philosophy needs a basis of reality on which to work, right? It needs a theory or interpretation of reality, and that comes through religion. So religion gives you your theory of reality, and then philosophy works with that theory. And I think things like morality, I don't think it's a stretch to say that. I don't think it's, for instance, in the Old Testament with the Ten Commandments given, and there's a huge ton of laws after that. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Clearly people had to be told this is wrong, this is right, etc., etc., etc. And obviously you can have certain people who can figure out by themselves, oh yeah, this is wrong, this is right. Or
the Ubermenschen.
Or who just know, right? Who have that instinct, right? But certain people do need to be told. And I think the giving, the receiving of that ethics, the receiving of the Ten Commandments, you could take that as, I think Jordan Peterson would love that analogy, like the idea would be we passively receive certain things like morality, right? We don't really as much work for them as we just kind of know they're wrong.
Interesting.
And I think religion is what begins the tide to know these things are wrong. I mean, slavery is obviously a great example, right? It's oh yeah, this is fine. It wasn't until Christianity came onto the scene. Obviously, it took a while. It wasn't until Christianity came onto the scene with the doctrine that all men are equal, all men have dignity under God, that we see things like abolition start to happen.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's in the more pagan countries where slavery continues to exist, right? It's like,
and literally, like, the Brits, through, like, Christian morals, literally just single-handedly started the abolition movement and almost completely wiped out slavery.
Exactly. No one ever talks about that. Like, slavery continues to exist if it's not Christianity. It's the only religion that's saying, no, we need to stop this. I mean, heck, the Barbary Wars, which conveniently enough, we're not really taught about in school, were a whole series of wars fought by the British and the Americans to take back slaves and cease the practice of slavery in African territories, specifically Moorish territories, right? You would have the Barbary pirates, where these Muslim pirates who would raid European coasts and again, Africans, obviously all slavery is terrible, but in the African trade, the Europeans and the Americans would come, they would be ready and waiting, a whole group of slaves, they'd be given over to them, they take them, they leave. The Barbary pirates would actually like go in and take families, like raid villages, take up families, and put them into slavery, and if numerous times when they were about to be caught by British ships or American ships, they would just kill
the slaves.
Kill them, throw them overboard. But yeah, no, so Christianity was what quite literally took down slavery. And so I do think religion is what gives us, like, literally, God is giving us our intellect. Like, He's giving us the knowledge of morality.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. But isn't there... God didn't say, now go out and abolish slavery. Mm-hmm. Like, humans took Christian reality and they ratioed it up and decided, oh, hold on. Right. Like, through like an intellectual process, they were like, what are we doing with these slaves? Like, hold on, this is not this is not conducive to a Christian lifestyle. This doesn't fit with how we do everything else. So I feel like
a combination, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, definitely a combination of conjecture and refutation. But I think the like there is still an element of like computing.
Sure.
Of taking these laws and like it took I don't know.
Yeah.
1700 years.
Yeah.
1600 years to figure out like. Maybe we shouldn't be enslaving these people for it to really take hold.
For sure.
And it also turns out that the societies without slavery tend to do better than the societies with slavery, as we've seen in Western dominance.
People didn't really think about that, though. That was more of an after.
Oh, yeah. People weren't like, we need a... Yeah. He'll talk about this, too. You can't be like, we need society to be better. Exactly. Let's start doing morally good things. Yeah, it has to be the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. You get the fruits only if you're willing to plant the tree. You can't just plant the tree because you want the fruits.
Exactly.
It might sound counterintuitive, but it makes sense, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to go contemplate because I want, to be healthy or have good effects. And that's not the way it works. You're not actually going to. You won't get the fruits if all you want is the fruits. You put in the work.
So is it fair to say that, like, you know how people always say, like, oh, if you were back in the 1800s, you would have been pro-slavery. And it's always like, the dumbest argument, because it's like, well, if I were back in the 1800s, like, I wouldn't be me.
Exactly.
And if I was, then yes, I would be against slavery.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, the idea that, like, well, in 1800s America, we still weren't all on the same page about this. Like, half the country really was pro-slavery. Is it fair to say that, like, they hadn't, like, we were still computing at that point. And now, in this point, culture gives us our ready-made answer that we don't have to think about why slavery is wrong that hard. Like, we can eventually, and we usually do. But
I would definitely agree with that. I think that, especially in today's culture of crying out racism, I think if you asked at least 90% of people, hey, why is racism wrong? It would take them a while to actually figure out why it's wrong. Yeah. Like, you're definitely not going to get because we're all equal in the eyes of God and we all have human dignity. You're not going to get that.
Yeah. But we know it's wrong.
Exactly.
We can easily, and that's like our fully computed answer that society has passed down to us.
So maybe it's kind of a virtuous circle, a virtuous cycle, where morality starts up as given to us, intellect. We use the ratio to implement best practices so that we can live moral lives, and then that creates a culture in which our intellect is properly cultivated so that we do just see morality. We do see, racism is wrong. We do see pedophilia is wrong. Yeah. Maybe it is kind of a combination of the two.
I think that's a good synthesis of ratio and intellectus.
Yeah.
But the last thing I would say is you've got to be able to criticize the inspirations you have. Like you can't just take it like you can't just take every thought you have as divine inspiration.
Well, I don't think he says that though. I think we need to talk about the simple. Yeah, he says the operation of the ratio really is work and a difficult activity, but the simple act of the intellectus is not work. Mm-hmm. So
that fits with what we were saying.
Right, exactly. And then he says, certainly, knowing in general and philosophical knowing in particular cannot take place without the effort and activity of discursive reasoning, without labor involved in intellectual work. And even so, there's something else in it and something essential to it that does not work. Okay, so what he's saying is, so obviously to know anything, specifically philosophical knowing, you have to put in the ratio. You have to, do the work to get there.
As I say.
Right, exactly. But in that knowledge is the intellect, right? So in the same way that I can work to know why, even if I'm not, so to go back to your example of the people who think, getting kids to get married or slavery, whatever it is totally fine. They can do the work to see why those things would be wrong, right? If someone talk to them and maybe they think of that and then maybe they can connect the dots, they can definitely be brought to see why it's wrong. But I think once they have that knowledge, maybe we could say, I wonder if he would, this might be a stretch, but I wonder if he would say, once you get to a certain kind of knowledge about morality, I wonder if you could say that, I don't want to say it goes to the intellectus, but my knowledge that certain things are right and wrong, I don't really ever work for them. There's there. Maybe at some point I did have to work for them, but now I don't. So maybe I wonder if there's a transition to it. You just kind of you just know it, right? You don't really think about it that much.
Yeah, and this is isn't it called type 1 and type 2 thinking? This is the psychological area.
Maybe.
Not my strong suit. But you notice in really good jiu-jitsu players who don't teach have no idea how to teach jiu-jitsu. They have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's they've figured out, they did the work to figure out how to do these really complex moves.
Right.
And now they go to do them or explain them to their students, and they go hold on, let me run through this again and observe myself to figure out what I'm doing.
Right.
Because it's so I do think you're right, where it's whether or not you get it from culture or your own computation, you do have to do that at some point, and then it just becomes we can use this result, have it as a category, go, this fits in the pedophilia category, it's wrong, you already know that. We've got to read, what's it called? By Tor Noratrenders, The User Illusion. Okay. Have you heard of it?
It rings a bell. You might have mentioned it before.
Peterson talks about it a few times. I've heard some other people. It's it's so good. It's one of the deepest books I've read recently.
Really?
Yes, it's really worth it.
Okay. Next on the docket then, I guess.
Next Facts and Smiles episode.
Yeah, amen.
After We Who Wrestle with God.
Yeah, right. That's going to be a banger.
Hardly know.
That episode should just only be in Jordan Peterson's voices.
Yeah.
that would be funny. I'm not sure if I could make it for.
You could do an Alex Cooper.
2 or 3 hours. That'd be it. Yeah.
Not an Alex Cooper. Yeah. What's that guy's name? Cosmic Skeptic.
Alex O'Connor.
Alex O'Connor. Alex Cooper is Color Daddy.
The way to do Alex O'Connor is just to sound like a smug British person. You got it.
Yeah.
It's I think what you're saying is actually wrong. Yeah, okay. Wow, smart. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, then he talks about that the truth of something is determined by effort, which he said is not right. Okay, we need to talk about this. Yeah. So from this viewpoint, this Kantian viewpoint, that the truth of something is determined by the effort put into knowing it, you get this idea that whatever someone does by inclination, meaning without effort, is a betrayal of true morality. According to Kant, the moral law by definition is opposed to natural inclination. It is simply part of the nature of things that the good is difficult, and that the effort put into forcing oneself to do something becomes the standard for moral goodness. The more difficult thing must be the higher good. So from Kant's viewpoint, okay, the more effort you put into knowing something, the more true it is. Okay, well, by definition then, the more effort going into doing something like, not watching porn, or giving some money to the poor, or having a friendly conversation with someone who's like a libtard, whatever it is, those things require effort, right? They're hard to do, therefore they're worthwhile, therefore they're good. And it's funny because I think I might have always had this idea that, since it's harder to do, it's obviously good. But Pieper points out this interesting point that I think he's exactly right, which is that, yes, good things require more effort, but the effort put into them does not at all have any effect on their goodness. And in fact, the less effort you put into doing good things, the more good you are. In fact, like the more moral person you are, the easier the quote-unquote hard things become. I think he's spot on there.
That's so interesting. I think so. He does like call out the idea that like hard work is good for its own sake. He goes like just hard things, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's good. This is so interesting because I'm deep in the red pill I can't remember what we call it,
manosphere.
Yeah, but not even that. Just the self-improvement space. Not so much the red pill space. That's that's like the all women are hoes.
Right. Don't want to be there. We don't need to entertain here.
No. And it's like there's this idea that like no work is wasted because when you try to do something, even if you fail, even if you find out you're doing the wrong thing, if you worked hard on it, you build discipline, and that's a positive. And I think to some extent, like there's some truth in that, where it's like, if your aim is in the right direction, and you end up failing despite putting in good effort, or you find out that your aim actually wasn't in the right direction, or what you were doing wasn't actually supporting your aim, the work wasn't wasted.
Right.
I feel like more so than. Oh wait, first of all, there's the idea. I'm Jordan Peterson really hard right now.
Okay, so
we're gonna bring it all together.
Of course.
There's the idea in the Bible where if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off.
Right.
And that's the idea. And you know what that means symbolically is that you don't want to set yourself up to have it be difficult not to sin. You want sinning to be hard and doing the good thing to be easy.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's exactly what Pieper's saying.
Right.
It's not proportion to how hard the work is.
Right.
It's not about that.
Right.
But I think what makes the most sense is that it's the goodness and the hard work are just completely orthogonal to each other. That's a math word. They're perpendicular to each other.
Yeah, no, I could tell by the hand gesture you were making. Yeah.
I think he says orthogonal at some point.
He might actually.
But it's not about this.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, there are certain things that are really good, or there are certain things that are really evil that are not. That it's not hard for me not to do them. Like I've never felt like murdering someone.
Yeah.
That's like an evil that's really easy for me not to do.
Yeah.
But there are also things that are really evil that it's really hard for me not to do.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Can't think of anything.
Right.
But they exist.
Right.
And yeah, like not making fun of people for having a bad diet. That's a really tough one.
Well, even just like if you're able to work through the challenge, it eventually becomes super easy. Like you don't even feel the inclination. It's just like, why would I do that? It's wrong, right? So once you're willing to put in a certain amount of work, it does become easy. And
see, but that's even
right.
That's like kind of. Like, that's kind of pro hard work. That's not like,
Right. No, again, remember, he doesn't say it with morality. He's not saying it. He even says, he quotes St. Thomas Aquinas, where is this? What Thomas Aquinas says is that virtue perfects us so that we can follow our natural inclination in the right way. Yes, the highest realizations of moral goodness are known to be such precisely in this, that they take place effortlessly because it is of their essence to arise from love.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talks about, okay, so for example, why is it the case that we talk about, it's loving your enemies is a great good? Well, obviously because it's really hard to love your enemies, right? That must be why it's good. He says, no, what makes this line of, it is not the difficulty involved that makes this kind of love so worthy, even though the greatness of the love is shown by its power to overcome the difficulty. But if the love were so great as completely to remove all difficulty, that would be a still greater love. So he's not saying the problem lies, so like obviously it's hard to love your enemies, and you overcoming that hardship is a good thing, but what makes loving your enemies a good thing is that it's just good. It doesn't matter the effort, and in fact, if you have zero effort in loving your enemies, that means you become a better morally inclined person and a better loving person, right? So in the same way that like, whether it's with sins of the flesh or sins of a desire or sins of insulting friends about their diet, like the putting work in to overcome those things, it's not a problem. But if you've gotten to the point where those things aren't, like they're not even, it's like so easy to not do them, that's a really good sign, right? And so the goodness lies therein, not in the process to get there.
Yeah. Tornor Tranders would say that the goodness, I mean, like you're not totally escaping the idea, like you put in a lot of hard work to make it easy for you. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, there's still like a correlation there.
He's not disputing that. Mm-hmm. I think he's saying that, the main thing he's saying is sins, and so what is good is not determined at all by the effort to do the good. What determines the good is the good.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he's saying. So like, for some people maybe it's really easy not to insult people, but not insulting people is still a good thing. And for some people, it's really hard not to insult people, but when they work hard to overcome it, their work is a good thing. But once it becomes effortless, it's still a good thing, right?
There are also multiple passages of the Bible that talk about like, to whom much is given, much is tested. And that's actually a Kanye line, but
original?
No, it's based on like Luke.
No, that's that was
10-12 or something.
A joke, but yeah.
And the idea, there's the whole thing where it's like the Pharisees come and give $100, and they're called, they're being selfish, but the old lady gives 2 cents, and it's all she has, and that's like a greater good than the giving of the $100. And and the symbolic.
But I think we would say there that the goodness doesn't lie, because presumably for this woman, it wasn't that hard to do it. Like we don't see any line about her like struggling or anything. Like she just kind of goes and does it, right? The goodness is the giving of everything, right? I mean, maybe you could say this, that there is great good in overcoming hardship, right? But the goodness of the act itself isn't determined by the effort.
Sure. Like like it might be even harder for, like, so let's say like the right thing to do is to give everything, but it's even harder for someone who is wealthier to give everything.
Yeah, right.
And that's a common theme. Right. It's like the more you have, the harder it is to give it all away.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I've always had this idea that like doing like what God calls you to do is to not just give everything away financially, but like give everything like to Him, like in all areas of life, like just everything you do,
heart, mind, and soul,
unto the Lord.
Yeah.
And for someone who has like the much is given, much is tested verse, it's like for someone who has more, and like again, not just financially, but like for someone who has the ability to work harder, then giving everything means working harder than someone who is less disciplined. But also like that's what builds discipline. So like there's like no matter where you are, giving everything, like 100% is like way more, like it looks like a lot more for some people than others. Right. But it's still like, it's still always going to be hard to give 100%.
Yeah. I think this is a good line that might encapsulate what we're talking about. So he says, talking about the Christian understanding of self-sacrifice, he says, in this understanding, one does not intend the painful as such, nor seeks exertion for the sake of exertion, nor the difficult simply because it is difficult. Rather, what one seeks is a higher bliss, a healing, and the fullness of existence, and thereby the fullness of happiness. The goal and norm of discipline is happiness. So basically, when you do something good, you're not doing it because you want to experience the effort. You're doing it because you want to get closer to God. You want to be the better person, right? And ideally, the holier person you are, the easier it is to do quote-unquote hard things. Like the saints, the more they progressed to love of God, the easier it was for them to do things like fasting, giving away their possessions, suffering, right? And sure, there were still things they experienced that were hard, but most of the things they were experiencing that they were considering hard would have been considered impossible for like quote-unquote ordinary people, right? Yeah. So you're not doing any of these things because they're hard. You're embracing the hardship because you want union with God, or because you want holiness, or because you want love, right?
That's really interesting, because like I had this idea, still do to some extent, where like you don't do things because they're hard, but like I said, like doing 100% is always going to be hard.
Yeah.
So it's like a telltale. Like you know you're not on the right path if it isn't hard. But it almost sounds like he's saying at a certain point it's not miserable. It's not always suffering.
Right.
So like, and maybe that's not inconsistent with saying it's always hard.
Right.
But there's also like, maybe what you would say is there's more joy in the celebration of completing a harder thing.
Yeah.
And what is celebrating hard work? Leisure. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely think you're on the right track there. Yeah.
We should keep making progress.
Yeah, let's see here. I think we've covered okay, so then he goes into, so we covered intellectual work.
Liberal arts?
Yeah, I was going to say liberal arts. Liberal arts, servile arts.
Yeah, do you just want to quickly?
Yeah. So
what is a servile art?
So the servile arts is basically working for you for the sake of utility, or like gaining knowledge for the sake of utility. Whereas the liberal arts are just the freedom of knowledge. So, for example, if he would call it the sciences servile arts, right? Because if you pursue them insofar as you're only looking for utility, right? I want to figure out the answer to this problem so that I can use it to make this machine or to cure this cancer or whatever it is. Whereas he does say you can pursue it in a liberal manner. Whereas things like philosophy, they're pursued just for the sake of knowing it.
And you can't pursue it for a servile manner.
Right, exactly.
If you try, you just solve.
And he says that's why we get these problems with all these crazy German philosophers, is because they're pursuing philosophy just from what can we get out of it? How can we figure out history for Hegel? How can we figure out, even for Marx too, how can we figure out the dynamic between classes? Like, they're just looking at philosophy to explain some aspect of humanity, to like fix some aspect of humanity.
And in Hegel's case, it's the king of Prussia or Austria. I mean, saying, all right, Hegel, write philosophy that proves that I should be king and I'll pay you.
Yeah,
so
right.
They're running to that issue.
And it's why all these guys, their philosophy is just total crackpot nonsense, because they're not actually doing it right.
So this raises a lot of questions that we should go into. But the first one, like what strikes me is, I don't know how to say that that liberal arts exist in the sense he talks about.
Okay.
How can there be something that's a good in and of itself, when like my paradigm is that there's one good, God, and everything you do is either serving God or sinning. Like everything is to the end of serving God.
Right.
And how does this idea of liberal arts that doesn't serve anything but is somehow good in and of itself? Well, if it's a good, it should be serving God. So how do we get to these liberal arts?
I think the distinction you would make is with the liberal arts, you're not pursuing them to gain something, right? You're doing them because you. Yeah. So this actually reminded me a little bit of Senior when he was talking about education, and he talked about how when we want to educate people. We want to give them the great books. We want to give them history. We want to give them literature. We want to give them not just the things that will like get them a job or make them money, right? We want to fully. They both mention actually John Henry Newman talking about like the gentleman, right? Just the man who is cultured, who has knowledge, who has taste, who has virtue and morality and all those things, right? And I think you would think about it as the benefit is for. Yeah, that's actually, I like that. So, something that's good in and of itself, in this case, the liberal arts, I think what that means is they're good for your relationship to God, right? So you don't need, so like with the sciences, oh, well, I'm pursuing this so that I can make this to make society better. But with the liberal arts, I think you're just pursuing them because they will enhance your relationship with God. And maybe you would say, okay, that's utility. But I think if it's good in and of itself, that's obviously calling some sort of divine aspect, right? Because only God's good in and of himself. And he even talks about a lot how, like, philosophy, we're always trying to get closer to wisdom, right? We love wisdom, and that's God. Mm-hmm. So the liberal arts, if you think about it, is they're not useful because they don't, like, help humanity or the world. All they do is help you in relationship to God. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps.
So he's talking about, when he says something that's good in and of itself, that's the same thing as saying, it serves God. But it serves God directly.
I would think so.
As opposed to...
Maybe I'm misunderstanding him, but I would think so, yeah.
I mean, I would hope so. Yeah. Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing?
It is kind of, doesn't make sense, yeah.
We have a monotheistic reality. Mm-hmm. It's not a polytheistic reality.
Right. Yeah. You can also think about it, too, as if you pursue the liberal arts, philosophy and theology and literature and all these things... If you're made a better person because of that, if you're brought closer to God, that will help the spiritual world, right? In your interactions with other people, it'll make you a better person, and that's a net good for humanity. So I think he's not talking about, when he talks about utility, I think he means, concrete. How can I see how this helps or how this matters, right? He's just saying put that aside and just contemplate it, right? Just behold.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so he talks about use. Okay, so now we get into leisure, idleness, and acedia, or
sloth.
Acedia. That's how you say it, right? Yeah. So acedia is the despair of weakness, and that it consists in someone despairingly not wanting to be oneself. The metaphysical, theological concept of idleness means that man does not agree with his own existence, that behind all his activity he is not at one with himself, that sadness has seized him in the face of the divine goodness that lives within him, and this sadness is the sadness of the world.
And this is interesting, because acedia is usually translated as sloth.
Yeah.
And sloth we think of as laziness.
Right.
And he's saying, well, and we say like, oh, laziness, that's just not working hard enough. That's just being undisciplined. Right. And he's taking this in a completely different path.
Yeah, so acedia has something to do with the business ethos of the Middle Ages. Lackadaisical stay at home in contrast with the active and useful worker. Yeah, okay, so he says that in the current day, acedia is what you were talking about. It's interpreted as just being, lazy, like a thumb twiddle. You're just twiddling your thumbs. You're not doing anything. You're not being useful to society. And he says that actually you can be... Okay, is there an adjective for acedia? Ascetic?
Ascetic, yeah.
That's actually a word.
It might mean something else, but it is a word. Acetic.
Okay, then maybe we'll say it.
Acetic is, it's a kind of acid. Acetic acid.
Okay, yeah. Okay, fine. To have acedia, I don't know if that's appropriate, but he says that to have acedia does not mean that you're just... You can, what do you say? You can be, making yourself busy, trying to spend time, trying to make time go by, and still be engaging in acedia. The difference between acedia and leisure is... It seems like he's saying leisure is the embracing and enjoyment of life and reality and one's place in reality and one's relationship to God, whereas acedia is this sort of discontent. You're not willing to accept your place in the world. You're not willing to accept your place with God, and you're trying to, almost it seems, remove yourself from your humanity, right? You don't want to accept that you're a human being who has to engage in a relationship with God. You want to stay away from that, it seems.
Yeah, and a human being who has like a divine spark inside of him. Like
right.
I think he calls it like a fear or like a lack of admission of like your own connection to God.
Yeah, yeah.
And when he talks about it this way, he makes it sound like leisure is like mindfulness. Or like this vipassana type of thing where
I think like contemplation would be more appropriate.
Sure. Well, it's more Catholic at least. But I think it's the same thing that the Buddhists are talking about.
Okay, well, maybe this is the difference here. Because when he talks about contemplation, I'm right on board with him. Like, it makes sense to me, right? That's it. We talk about this in my theology class. Moses is, in the Old Testament, one of the examples of the contemplative life, right? He's always, he beholds the face of God, right? He can see the face of God, right? And at the same moment that he's getting great peace, he also wants more. So it's this dynamic of it, wanting to experience all of God's love, but not being able to and ready to, even though you're content with what you already see. And I think contemplation it's funny because he dances a lot on Catholicism and Christianity, but he never goes, at least in the first essay, he never goes explicitly into theology, but it seems kind of like he's talking about cultivating a relationship with God, right?
Yeah.
Like almost a sort of prayer, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the sense I got was like leisure is this sort of like this sort of peaceful acceptance that things are like okay the way they are, and also trying to make them better. Yeah. And acedia is like this like foot tapping like restlessness. Yeah. Where you have like this just like you can't like it's like a mental disorder where you can't you can't just like be still and know that I am God. No, I'm glad. Not me. Yeah, right. Particularly. Yeah, right. I'm glad you brought up restlessness, though, because I think that he makes an interesting analogy that leisure is akin to sleep, right? And acedia is akin to restlessness, right? So when you're sleeping, you're just, what is it? You have this state of mind where everything's going to be okay. You're just going, you're letting yourself go, right? You're not actively doing anything, right? It's just letting yourself go. Whereas restlessness is, I need something to do, right? I can't sit still. I have to distract myself. And it's funny because in his description of it, I kind of feel like I do feel like I engage in this sort of restless behavior when I have nothing to do. Like when I've accomplished, specifically during the school year, if I have all my assignments done, if the paper's going well, tutoring's going well, if all the stuff's going well, I usually just fill my time with, I don't know, YouTube, right? It's boring, inane stuff just to keep me occupied until I go to bed. Dude. And I think what he's pointing out is almost sort of like when you're bored, just to accept the boredom, right? Just to, I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase before, but just to be, right? Sounds kind of hippie. Never heard that before. To be? Yeah. Just be, right? Just be. Sure. Like, it's very, very Vipassana. Right. Okay. Sure. Maybe. I don't know. But just to kind of, to not worry about filling your time with activity or engagement or anything like that, but just to, I don't know, maybe just be at peace. I 100% can relate to that. Yeah. Like, in the school year, and even outside of the school year, it's like, no matter what's going on these days, like, every once in a while, there will be like a pocket where it's like, I actually don't have anything that I need to do. Yeah. Like, there's no servile work to be done. Mm-hmm. And it always like hits me like, and I get this like restlessness of like, hold on, I've got to make the most of this leisure time right now. Right. And it's like, it's almost like I have so little practice with leisure that I don't know what to do with my like leisure time when I do have it. Yeah. It's like I end up like watching YouTube or something, or, like I never do some like fun, like, or maybe fun isn't the right word, but maybe it is like some sort of like engage and play just for the sake of, but I never even, I could just go for a walk, just, dude, I never do that. There's so many things you can just,
And even just the thought that I have to do something, like I should be doing something right now, is just interesting. I think he says here, interesting, he says, leisure is a form of stillness that is necessary for preparing for accepting reality. Only the person who is still can hear, and whoever is not still cannot hear. And it's not mere soundlessness or dead muteness. It means rather that the soul's power as real, of responding to the real, has not yet descended into words. Leisure is the disposition of receptive understanding, of contemplative beholding, and immersion in the real. It's a little bit out there, but I think I get what he's saying. I think what he's saying is like what we were saying earlier, it's just a lack of, it almost seems like he's describing just being at peace. Like not worrying about, I need to be doing something right now. Just taking time when you have nothing to do, just to, I don't know, maybe take that time to pray. Maybe take that time to relax. Maybe just contemplate. Maybe just think about things,
Yeah.
But, yeah,
it's almost, like I can get on board with them that like sometimes doing nothing is the right thing to do. Not because doing nothing doesn't do anything for you, but because sometimes doing nothing is like the optimal way to get closer to God.
Right.
Or going on a walk and just like with no intention.
Especially because, especially in today's, I can only imagine back then, but let alone today, there are so many easy distractions.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard to find those moments of quiet where it's just you and God, or just you and your thoughts, or just a moment just to have some time just to be at peace with some prayer. It's, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, there's obviously screens, there's obviously people, there's things to do. It's just, and then obviously with social media and all this stuff, we have these added distractions, these added things to keep us going. And it's all just, I think Satan probably loves stuff like this, right? It's just, more social distractions. Media. More things to keep you away from God, more things to keep you away from just thinking. Because that is another thing too, just thinking, just being with your thoughts. Obviously prayer is really good, and that should probably be one of the things we're focusing on. But I think most people are terrified of just being with their own thoughts, terrified of just being quiet. Even in those moments where, I'll even find myself doing this sometimes, where I'll just, I'm not doing anything. Like maybe I'm typing a paper, right? I'll turn on a podcast, or I'll turn on some music, right? Just this inability just to have some quiet, just to have some quiet.
Yeah, same.
Just to relax. 100%. Like there's this need to have a background noise. You're just, so I should be doing something right now, So
I think for you and I, we probably aren't scared of our own thoughts, but
no, definitely not.
we probably fall more on the side of whenever I'm working at 70%, I feel lazy because I could be I could be both washing dishes. If I'm washing dishes and listening to music, I'm not making the most of my time because I have enough attention to spare to listen to an audiobook. Right. Or maybe not an audiobook, but a podcast.
Yeah. It's I'm doing this thing that I might as well have something else going on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But you know who Mark Norman is?
I think so.
Legendary comedian. And by legendary, I mean he's pretty great.
Okay.
He's got this joke where it's not even like a joke. He says sometimes I'll go to the store or something and I'll forget my headphones and I'll just be in silence the whole time. He's like, man, thoughts are not good. He's like, and it's like everyone laughs because everyone just relates to him. It's because no one sits with their thoughts anymore.
Yeah, it's that.
I think I'm a big fan of the idea of journaling. I don't actually do it, but I think in theory it would be a great practice to do. To just have another form of prayer almost.
Yeah.
Where it's I don't want to slip into calling it intellectus, but kind of intellectus.
Yeah.
Cultivating the conjectural side of your brain.
Right. It is funny because there are. Wow, that was a stroke. Specifically, when
you're calling a cat.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I felt that one. But when I'm going to bed, that's when I find I have most of my. I just love just to think right about then. I'll just think about pretty much anything, and it's nice, but it seems like it's almost an afterthought. The day's done. Now let me what do I want to think about? And just let the thoughts go. And obviously I'm thinking about stuff throughout the day. But I even find myself specifically a couple weeks ago. At one point, I was just kind of just pacing, just walking around in my apartment, just thinking about random stuff. It was kind of nice and relaxing. It was just engaging with certain ideas, thinking about it, discussions. It was nice.
Yeah, and it's funny, one of my best, if anyone ever asks me, like, what are your life hacks that you've implemented? Mm-hmm. No one has ever asked me this. I'm the one who always asks this. But if someone did, I would say one of the first ever, habits that I implemented was praying every night. Mm-hmm. And I talked to you about this, early on when I first implemented it. And it's it is, it's genuinely one of the most, I would never go back. It's so great.
Prayer is amazing. Yeah.
But the only reason I do it is because it's a habit that I've scheduled every single day, and it's
But that's busy. Not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good to have a specific, because here's the thing I found. When I was just telling, okay, I'm going to pray tomorrow. Never happened. It's not until you give yourself a set time, this time I'm going to do this no matter what, then all of a sudden, you actually start praying, right? Because you need to inculcate that habit, and eventually it becomes, just easy, like he's talking about, right? You don't have to work for it, but that's a good thing, because now you actually have time to work in a relationship with God.
I think maybe that's the solution for leisure. When we were talking about earlier, if we just run out of things to do and have a block of time, and it hits us, we're on the back foot, we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
But if we schedule leisure into our schedules.
That's not a bad idea.
I think that's it. And you can even think about it not putting it into the schedule, but there's the schedule, and then your schedule ends, and then it picks up an hour later. Yeah. And the leisure's in the middle there. I feel like people would like that.
It was funny because at the end of this first essay, he says, this has all been, diagnosis of the problem. He's like, I don't have a solution. We can figure that out later.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not a bad idea. But also, too, to be fair, I like that. Leisure also, like he said, it's not just the stillness. It's also a state of mind, right? So it's the restless mind comes to the forefront in those moments of silence, right? Because now it's okay. We need to start moving. We need to start being active.
Shower thoughts.
Exactly. But he even says, if you're in a state of leisure, all of a sudden work doesn't become idleness or forget it. Where was I going with this? Yeah. If you have a leisurely state of mind, all of a sudden work becomes more enjoyable. Work becomes something you're doing because it's part of, maybe he doesn't say this explicitly, but it's because it's part of who God's calling you to be, right? In this moment, God's calling me to work right now, and that's part of my mission right now. I'm doing it, and you're enjoying your position in reality, and you're accepting your position in your reality.
I think I said earlier that I think he used the word orthogonal at some point.
I think he might.
I think he's talking about work and leisure. How they're not opposed to each other. It's not like you work and then you leisure.
Right.
It's if leisure is a state of mind, it's not what you're doing.
Right.
It's a state of mind maybe where things don't feel hard. You're not
because
doing work.
The restless state of mind wants you to work because you need to be doing something right now. But the leisurely state of mind allows you to work because it's part of your place in reality.
Yeah, and to rescue leisure from being not an end of it in and of itself. Sometimes it's not even efficient to have that mentality of I have to always be doing something.
Right.
That's not even helpful.
Right.
The best example for me is I'll be working on something and I'll need to go to the bathroom and I'll go pee and I'll be hold on, but I've got 15 seconds here. I should be doing something. I take out my phone and start going through my emails or something. And then 2 minutes later, I'm shoot, it's not 2 minutes ever. It's 7 minutes later.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not doing, I could be doing much more efficient work.
Yeah.
And because I was trying to make the most of this 20 seconds, I had to be, so it's it would be literally in a servile sense, better just to be you know what, my bathroom breaks are leisure time. We're not going to try to make the most of them.
Right. Okay, so he talks about here that leisure is the condition of considering things in a celebrating spirit, and leisure is only possible in the assumption that man is not only in harmony with himself, but also that he is in agreement with the world and its meaning. Leisure is not the same as the absence of activity. It is not the same thing as quiet or even inner quiet. It is rather like the stillness in the conversation of lovers, which is said by their oneness, which is, again, kind of heady, but it seems like leisure is just, a radical embracing of God's relationship with you, your relationship with him, and just your place in the world, right? Yeah. And just the joy therein.
Yeah, you're not worried.
Right.
You could be working. You might not be.
Yeah. It's almost, it reminds me of, the lilies of the field, they toil and spin, but Solomon's not even clothed like one of these, right? It's like...
They neither toil nor spin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this, he's addressing this worry that people have that, what's going to happen next day? And he's like, don't worry, your Father will care for you. I think it's something similar to this, where it's just this peace with your place in the world, rather than constant worrying about what you're going to do next.
So it seems like we started out saying you shouldn't always be working. There are these things, sometimes you should be doing things for their own good.
Yes.
And then we've like slipped into, like we've like slowly worked our way into like, actually, leisure is a state of mind. But it's also, you can be doing servile things while doing leisure.
Right.
Maybe you should just always be in leisure and
right,
even when you're working.
He does say you do need the actual time away from work so you can engage in, I think, what he calls festival, right?
Yes.
So the cultic worship, right, of God, right?
But festival is the ultimate. Well, first of all, is that in the philosophical act
or? No, that I think is towards.
Okay, yeah. The soul of leisure is celebration. Like the festival is like the and really, what is festival? It's worshiping God.
Right.
Like that's every all celebration. If it's not worshiping God, it's some like it's like the French Revolution where they're like specifically we're going to try taking the worship of God out of celebration.
He mentions that. No, so he says that. So to go back to our point about you do need actual time, he says that. Religious festival or cult has a specific meaning in the Greek to time, where a definite period is separated off, and this period of time would not be used and would be kept from use. So, for example, the seventh day in Christianity. So he does stress the importance of actually having time to worship God. I think this is why, we have Mass, you guys have church service. There is great importance in having it. No, this time is. I'm not going to do anything with this. This is only for God. So you do need the actual activity. Funnily enough, you do need activity and time set aside just for leisure, which sounds counterintuitive, but I think it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that totally checks out. Yeah, because as nice as it sounds, to always be zenned out and even when you're working, be that just doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
Not, You might need,
especially too because sure there are moments where you're going through the motions and you have your thoughts, but there are also times when you're actually working and putting an actual effort, and you don't you're not thinking really of anything. You're just doing the work.
Yeah.
Okay, I found what you're talking about with orthogonal. Although here in my translation it's perpendicular.
Yeah.
He says, leisure stands in a perpendicular position with respect to the working process.
There we go.
In just the same way as the simple gaze of intellectus does not consist in the duration of ratio's working out process, but instead cuts through it at the perpendicular. The ancients compared the ratio with time, the intellectus with the always now of eternity. Leisure is not there for the sake of work, no matter how much new strength the one who resumes working may gain from it. Leisure is not justified by providing bodily renewal or mental refreshment to lend new vigor to further work, although it does bring these things. So the purpose of leisure isn't to make us better able to work, and even though it might give us bodily refreshment, that's not the purpose of it, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about that though. I like this. The intellectus is the eternal, and the ratio is the timely knowledge. I think that checks out. It's the ratio is where you engage in actively working to find something out, and that takes time. Whereas the intellectus is just already there, you just know it. Maybe that was a result of time at some point, but currently it's just there.
Yeah, and whatever it is, the intellectus is the touch point of the divine, of the timeless, the immortal.
Yeah, right.
It's like, all truth. He's got this great quote where it's like, being is truth. Like truth and being are the same thing. Like, and all truth is always true.
Right.
I think that's in the next one, but.
He definitely says that at some point. Do you remember that?
So the ratio may point you to the truth, but the thinking itself is not. Like the intellect is, like the ultimate truth is what you're trying to find.
Exactly.
With the cranking out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And he says that leisure, to maybe wrap up leisure, he says that, the comic we were talking about earlier, if you pray before you go to bed and you sleep better, you don't think praying is a means of going to sleep, right?
Uh-huh.
And this, similarly, leisure, if you're just trying to get the leisure so that you can be better ready to work, you're not going to actually get the fruit of leisure, which would be refreshment. And leisure is justified in keeping us human, right? And keeping us a gentleman, right?
I have here, he talks about if you take a vacation from work just so that you can work more effectively. Mm-hmm. Like if you're taking a break from work and the sole purpose of that is for your work. Mm-hmm. That's just work.
Yep.
That's all still work. There's no leisure that happened there. And which I don't think I've ever taken a break from work and have not, without being all right, time to recharge.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that hurts. Almost as much as when he says how leisure necessitates wastefulness. If you're you're gonna have leisure, you can't be optimizing. You have to be a little bit you just can't be uptight focusing on maximizing anything during leisure. It's just what happens.
Yes.
Same with a celebration. It's not a fun celebration if we go all right, we can use exactly 1 pound of glitter.
Right.
But
right.
And
we're gonna have this time is allocated to talking, this time is to the a dunk contest or whatever, whatever's going on.
Exactly. That's how most of my parties go.
Yeah. Legit. Right. Yeah. It's just you go with the flow. Even at parties, even if it's just conversation and drinks or whatever, you find yourself migrating from conversation to conversation just randomly, right? It's just it just go with the flow. It just happens. No one thinks a party is good if you're gonna talk to this person for 30 minutes, this person 15. What? That's not how it works.
Yeah. And that's why our podcasts don't have a specific time increment.
You go with the flow.
They have to. The book demands a certain amount of time.
Exactly.
We don't know what that is.
Exactly.
It's also why we don't have sponsors, because we can't.
Sadly. Yeah. Well, actually, not sadly. They don't need us.
We don't want to be subservient.
Yeah, we don't need them.
Like Hegel and the King of Prussia.
Yeah, exactly.
Or.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Will it ever be possible to keep or reclaim some room for leisure from the forces of the total world of work? And he says, what is it? Oh, he talks about humanism. Humanism, he says, actually cannot address. You have to have an element of the divine in being able to, put leisure into effect in the culture. You can't just say it.
Like what Chris Williamson says. You're familiar with modern wisdom?
Yeah.
Where he identifies this. He's I want all of these benefits. Everyone's better off. In all the categories of life satisfaction and marriage and happiness. Being in a religious community is the best for all of those.
Yep.
And he's I want those, but you can't just join a religious community because you want those. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work like that. Because if that's what you're doing, you're not going to get any. Like I said earlier, you're not going to get any of the fruits.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's funny. If you're going just for the fruits, you don't actually get the fruits.
Yeah, worship can't be done for the sake of saving society. It must be done for its own sake.
Yes.
And also, society requires it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Which is why, the whole Jordan Peterson thing where it's is it true? Well, it's true because it's, like it's true in an evolutionary sense. Like where he'll say like religion is true in the sense of like it's how humans have to organize their society around religion. Right. But if that's true and but if it's not true in the literal sense, then society crumbles. Like we need it to be true in both senses. Right. So. Yeah.
Then he talks about the proletarian, and deproletarianize.
Yes, he gets really like responds to Marxism.
Right. And he talks about the proletarian. It doesn't have to be anybody poor. It is the belief that work is useful activity. It's all about the common utility, not the common good, the common utility. And anybody can be a proletarian, whether you're poor or rich.
Yeah. As long as all of your life is devoted to your work.
So if you're a poor person and all you care about is working, so you can make a buck to work, you'd be
even if it's mindset. Providing for your family.
Right. And if you're someone who's really wealthy and what would you say?
You're like addicted to.
Give us an example. Yeah, I think it's something like. The proletarian is one who, whether or not he owns property, is constantly on the move because of the practical necessities of the absolutely rational production of goods. So it's all about, capitalism, baby, the grind set, right? It's all about production, efficiency, maximizing it.
And this, I like how he completely dismantles Marx here, where he's like, if there is such thing as being a proletariat or a proletarian, it's not your social class.
Yes.
It's your mindset about what you do.
Right. Like
that's what really matters.
Right. Because the leisurely poor person is radically opposed to the work obsessed poor person. They're not even in the same vein, right? The way they view the world is completely different.
So how do we deproletarianize?
Yeah, right. Where does he talk about this? I think he says. Authentic this is quite a word, proletarianization.
It's such a German word.
Assumes that the distinction between the liberal and the servile arts is meaningful in the distinction between useful activity on the one hand and free arts on the other hand, which are not used for nor adaptable to useful purposes. And it is completely in keeping with their position if the promoter is Okay, so it seems like he says the way to deproletarianize is to reintroduce the liberal arts because the liberal arts and the servile arts we recognize are different. The liberal arts are all about knowledge for the sake of knowledge, the freedom therein. Yeah. Servile arts are all about what usefulness does it serve? What use is it? Like, why are we reading the Iliad? How does that help me get a job? Right? Why are we studying Plato? How does that help me get a raise? Right? And he's saying it really reminds me of Senior. Gotta love the guy.
Yeah.
If you actually give a full, rich education centered on the human person to people, that's actual benefits. Even though you don't see the immediate benefits, it benefits the person. It makes men into gentlemen, right? And you get a better culture out of that.
Yeah. Like you have to realize that there's more to life than the work that has the what do you call it? The common usefulness.
Common utility, yeah.
Common utility. Yeah, there's more life than the common utility.
Right. Whereas the education of the person, the liberal arts, that actually indirectly serves the common good, which is very different than the common utility, right? We can think about common utility as physical, hospitals, reduction of taxes, economy, all this stuff, and the common good is the spiritual welfare of the body of Christ, right?
The common utility, it sounds like the effective altruism idea of good, where it's like, how can we maximize, the utilitarian sense of good.
Right.
That's great, except for the fact that we're human beings.
Right, exactly.
That doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah, it almost seems like common good, as opposed to common utility. Common good is, it gets its benefits from the butterfly effect, right? The idea that, butterfly in a mountain causes a hurricane. Mm-hmm. But if individual people, if you can create gentlemen in universities and gentlewomen in universities, if you can educate them in the human person.
They're not gentlewomen, they're ladies.
Oh, that's right. I'm tired. I thought that sounded weird.
Max.
Yeah. Sorry, we're not promoting any of this, alphabet stuff. Yeah. Obviously not. Just Too much kombucha. But if you turn men and women into gentlemen and ladies, thanks for the correction, then you get, if you can make even one person a better person, they're going to have a radically good effect on the world, right?
Sure. And this is the thing, I'm surprised it took me this long to remember. Like, this is what I was thinking about the entire time. Where he says there's like servile work and then there's liberal arts. Mm-hmm. But like, I think this may be just like a more simple like formalization or format of saying like how, I apologize for the podcast listeners, because I'm going to draw this out. Tune into the YouTube video if you want to see the chart. But like, there are just like different like orders of they're different like layers of analysis, or like hierarchies of analysis, let's say. And it's like you've got your like, this is like your highest level of analysis. Like, this is the like religious. Mm-hmm. And like, this is like your day to day. This is like the most servile, and it's really just like a gradient between the two, mm-hmm. where it's like, and your religious is what sets your, like, the most religious is the most like the highest order of analysis, mm-hmm. The most like directional, where it's like this isn't where the work gets done, this is where the work gets done, but this is where you find out what work you need to do. Like, it's the most it's like it's the orientation, and there's really just like like Jordan Peterson talks about how like the word, like when you're writing, like there's like the analysis of the word, then like the word serves a purpose of the sentence, and the sentence serves a purpose of the paragraph, and the paragraph to the chapter, and the chapter to the book. Yeah. And it's like your whole life is like that, where the things that you do on the like moment to moment, like your habits are not, your habits are fundamentally servile. Mm-hmm. And the things like, the reason maybe you as a Catholic would disagree with this, but like the reason my prayer is religious is because like, even though I block out time for it, mm-hmm. I don't pray the same thing every time, or at least like I don't have the same like mental picture the same every time.
Also, you'll feel different every time.
Exactly. Yeah. And like it's religious because it is like it's because it's not replicable. Like, it's not just a habitual thing. And
you can have habitual prayer though.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I see what you're saying though.
I don't know. I don't do the chanting prayers, but like, no. Even if you can get to a religious like state of mind through like the repetitive type prayers.
There's no. I would say you never actually get to know God if all you're doing is the repetitive prayers.
Sure.
You do need the, well, what do you say, the quote unquote like one-on-one, just free flowing prayer, right?
Yes.
You do need that.
I love those.
Yeah.
I would even say that like when you have to do like 10 Hail Marys because you, I don't know, broke the speed limit, that's like the servile work of the religious. Uh-huh. Like even if that's,
no, it's not. Thomas Aquinas talks about how there is. There's the order of justice, right? And when the order is disturbed, punishment needs to be meted out to rectify the order that was disturbed. Yep. And so, in the sacrament of penance, when the order of justice is disturbed, you do need to suffer temporal punishment to rectify that order, right? Uh-huh. So the Hail Marys after confession, you could think about that as being servile in a sense, sure. right?
In that case, maybe religious isn't the right word for it, like the highest order of analysis, mm-hmm. but there is something there. And yeah, again, not to demean the penance that you guys do. I know you're big on penance. Yeah. But like there is like every once in a while you have to make a 5-year plan, mm-hmm. and then like more frequently than that you have to say like, okay, well, what am I doing for the next year? Like maybe once a year, or maybe a little bit more often than that. Right. But like, and then like yeah, I could go all the way down. But like, yeah, like there's not really like maybe this is the most liberal and this is the most servile. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's fair to say like, okay, well, like these are liberal and these are servile, and there's just like these are, the stupid little servile things that...
Well, to be fair, I don't think he would say that the servile is the evil and the liberal is the good.
Sure.
The servile is
just like
that work which is done for the sake of something else, whereas the liberal is that knowledge which is for itself.
This serves this.
Right, exactly.
Like that. Here, you can keep this.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually a smiley face.
I thought it was something else, but okay.
What do you think it was?
It looks kind of like, well, 2 lily pads maybe, with a tongue.
The tongue?
Yeah, that doesn't look like a tongue.
Sure, yeah. It's a cartoon character from the top view, sticking his tongue out.
Boom. There we go.
Maybe Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Alright.
Anyway, yeah, he talks about how the Marxist proletarian mindset would say that the liberal arts are only useful in as much as they can give us something. They can give us something concrete, right? They should be, in the same way that work is equivalent to a wage you deserve, anything in liberal arts should be worthy of some sort of a concrete payment. And he also says that the problem with this mindset isn't just that we need to work for the sake of working, for the sake of utility, but it's also that when you get this mindset of the worth is put into effort, then you go, okay, well, we're only going to pay you a certain amount of money because you've only done this certain amount of work. Whereas the Christian tradition would say Bill gets paid enough to support his family, right? And you can't have that mindset in a strictly proletarian worldview, right? You need to have the liberal worldview of it. Well, no, humans have certain dignity, right? And people should be able to provide for their families. And that gets into a more political and economic discussion.
Yeah, which I would disagree with.
Right. But I get what he's trying to say, right? Where it can lend itself to a reduction of the human person to just the value they put in their work, right? Instead of their dignity, right?
Yeah. Whereas, briefly, I would say, like, you have an inherent human dignity.
Yeah.
And that never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still just your responsibility to provide like enough economic support for yourself.
I don't think you disagree with that. I think you're saying like this mindset could lend itself to thinking that, like, for instance, it could lend itself to, homeless people are worthless, totally worthless, because they don't lend any economic usefulness to the world.
And maybe the utilitarians would be like, well, they're just going to suffer for 10 years.
Right.
It's more utilitarian to just kill them right now.
Right.
To euthanize them, to decrease the surplus homeless
Because
population.
this is where you get Marxism, right? It's that well, it's not just for this. Marxism is crazy, but that is one of the underlying, what would you say, assumptions made by Marxism, which is that people are determined by their economic status, right? Mm-hmm. So that, the bourgeoisie, since they've gotten this status, they're the oppressors, now the proletarians are the oppressed because they're put down, right? And obviously, we need to be that economically prosperous, because otherwise, what do we do? Life's not worth it, right? It's that all of our worthfulness or worth, all of our worth is determined by our economic material possessions.
And shout out to Pieper, he does say that one of the ways you can deproletarianize is to limit the power of the state. Because the state is one of the things that keeps us as proletarians. So, my man.
Yeah. And I think that about concludes the first essay.
We kind of hit
Yeah.
Leisure Made Possible but by Divine Work section earlier on, too. Yeah. I'm ready to move on to the philosophical act.
Alright. So, the philosophical act. Alright, so he starts off by saying...
Starts off with a bang.
Yeah. So, how does leisure become possible at all? Okay, so let's pose the question again. Oh, wait. That's right. Leisure, the basis of culture of worship. That's right. We talked about worship and how the festival, which I really like, this idea that the festival and the celebration is where we find...
Might be.
Of course. Where we find connection with God, yeah. Anyway, so philosophical act. So, what does it mean to do philosophy?
Yeah.
And what is the philosophical act? Yeah. Okay. So he says, for a first approach, we can venture the following. A philosophical act is an act in which the workaday world is transcended. And then when he goes on to, now I need to explain what the workaday world is and why it needs to be transcended.
Yeah. So to quickly bridge the the last essay to this one, he says philosophy is like the most liberal of all the liberal arts. It's like it's completely detached. Like it never has any like workaday. Servile nature.
It can only operate in leisure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Aristotle says.
And he says the workaday world is the world of work. The utilitarian world, the world of useful, subject to ends, open to achievement, subdivided according to functions. Demand, supply, hunger, satiety. He keeps going on and on. And yeah, it's like, well, nothing wrong with that. Like he says later on, like we are incorporated beings. That's not what he says. We are made of meat. What is that word? Incarnated.
Yeah.
Like we have bodies.
Yeah.
And it's not that like we eventually will transcend our physical nature and be just spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are fully, like we are only fully human beings, like as God intended, when we have both a physical body and also a spiritual nature.
Right. Yeah. He says that, right, the genuine philosophical question strikes against the canopy that encloses the world of the citizen's workday. So it's taking us out of, later to talk about environment, it's taking us out of our environment and bringing us to the reality of the world, right? Yeah, he talks about the similarity between philosophy and poetry, right?
Yeah.
So, and love, so that it's this, I mean, Trinity was trying to tell us all along, it's the sense of wonder, right? That philosophy finds its source, its root in wonder, and that's also where poetry gets its source from, and love, right? This ability to contemplate and behold what is, he'll say later, it takes us, it takes us out of our comfort zone almost, right? It makes us like question, but if it's done rightly, it also gives a sense of hope and joy, right? If you're not philosophizing properly, you might despair, but instead, true philosophy, true wonderment gives you hope and a sense that you're getting closer to the truth and the way the world is, right?
Yes, and he says something I love, which is that in philosophy, we know we're never going to get there. Like
yes. It's predicated on mystery.
Yes, the perpetual not yet.
Yes, yeah.
Now, we don't have to get into how wrong he is about how science... I
know, yeah. You'd love to go on a tirade, but we both know where you stand on that.
And we both know how long I could spend talking about that. We don't have that kind of thing.
I'm going to be more sympathetic to him because I know what he's trying to say. Like,
sure.
Also, to be fair, he's not concerned with science.
Yeah, suffice it to say, he doesn't understand science.
Fair enough.
His point is good about philosophy.
Yes, fair enough, yeah. And it's interesting, too, he says, where religion is not allowed to grow, where the arts find no place, where the disturbance of love and death lose their depth and become banal, there, too, philosophy cannot survive. I think it's really interesting because in most dictatorial societies, one of the first things they try to quench out is what? Religion and the arts, right? Mm-hmm. And I think part of that stems from if you can crush people's sense of the mysterious and wonderment and their respect shown to the eternal, you really can crush their spirits, right? And you get despair. And so it seems to me very tactical. When you can get rid of these things, you'll have people who are more inclined to, not rebel, to be kept in line because they have nothing left to give themselves to.
And yeah, like ultimately, like what he says in the last essay, how the goal of the state that wants power, the strong state, is to proletarianize everyone.
Yes.
Because you don't want people to have anything outside of their work. You want everyone to be working for the common utility. Right. You don't want there to be such thing as a common good beyond that.
Yeah. And religion and the arts and philosophy all get in the way of that. The liberal arts specifically, they get in the way of your allegiance to the state.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he says there's a pseudo-philosophy whose character is precisely that it does not transcend the working world. And he gives the example of Protagoras is a sophist, and Socrates asks him, well, how do you teach philosophy? And he says, oh yeah, I teach good planning, I teach them how they can manage their household, how they can speak, how they can act in the city-state. Basically, like, I teach them maximization, and that's not philosophy.
Nothing to do with philosophy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's like self-improvement.
Exactly, yeah. And that's not philosophy, because it doesn't transcend the world. There's no wonder, there's no mystery there. It's just, here's how you can gain, here's how you can maximize.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't call it philosophy.
Exactly,
there's nothing philosophical about it.
Exactly.
But yeah, that gets to like what, and he talks about, we don't have to get into like how animals and plants, and I think, the different worlds.
I think we're chilling there.
That was too German for me.
Yeah.
But like, there is something like, to do philosophy is to step outside of your, like, your lowest level of analysis. Mm-hmm. The analysis, the part of you that is just gonna like sees a problem and tries to solve it, and it's to go like a higher level and to go like, how can I? Yeah, it's asked like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Or what philosophy asks the deep questions. It doesn't ask why is it worth it to study. It asks what is studying, right? Mm-hmm. It asks questions about reality,
which is so fun. I mean, we have to spend at least a little bit of energy just addressing the fact that like that's like completely antithetical to Karl Popper's idea of philosophy. Popper says everything. First of all, there's no difference between philosophy, science, religion. Like it's all like kind of like mushed together. Right. Like you can't draw a distinction between them. But philosophy is always like practical. Like it's always saying, I mean, maybe it's not always practical, but it's always addressing problems. Mm-hmm. It's always like, I have a problem where like my religion and my science are kind of butting heads right now. How can I resolve that problem? Like that's a philosophical question. Mm-hmm. And the question of what is something is like completely useless to Karl Popper. Right. He's like, you want to know what an electron is, like in its essence, like what it really is? That's stupid. Yeah, like you want to know.
Wow, you can't do it. Yeah.
What is love? Yeah. Like no. Give me a problem. Like you think you're in love with two women at the same time. That's a problem that we can answer philosophically. Right. And
it's funny because to that Pieper and Popper, Pieper says that philosophy actually isn't concerned with functional problems, right? Philosophy is not concerned with being useful because a problem necessitates that the answer to that problem will be useful. And he says, philosophy is not functional knowing, but free knowing, right? It doesn't acquire its legitimacy from its utilitarian applications and not from its relationship with common utility. Freedom, in exactly the sense, is the freedom of the liberal arts, and they're ordered. So to Popper's point, I think Popper and Pieper, Popper versus Pieper. Pieper would say, problems be damned. We're looking at what about, so like to go back to the question of like what is love or like what is studying. This isn't a problem to be solved. It's a part of reality to be embraced, right? Because I think the philosophical act it's not as much trying to find the answer to a problem as it is just to encounter reality, to get closer to reality, right? Yeah. I mean, he gives the example of, like you were saying earlier, philosophy is always the not yet, right? And God is wisdom. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. We're trying to get closer to God and trying to get closer to wisdom. We're not trying to solve a problem, right?
Yeah. And to give Popper credit, it's not like he says everything needs to have an end. Mm-hmm. In that sense, he's saying, like, his definition of a problem, like, it's very, like, loosely defined. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't have a formalism for what a problem is. That's one of Popperisms. But, like, the idea that just understanding reality, like, that's what we call science, and that's good. That's enough of a problem in and of itself. But we don't need to say, why should we understand reality? Like, we just should. Like, it's good. And our problems of understanding reality better are always worth answering. I also think it's worth at least mentioning part 2, paragraph 5 or 6 or something, goes, every living thing lives in a world in its world and has a world in which it lives. To live means to be in the world, though a stone, you may say, is surely in the world. Everything there is in the world, surely. But let us stick to the stone for a moment. Lifeless, lying about with other things, next to other things, and surely in the world. In, next to, with, all prepositions, words indicating a relation. Though the stone is not really related to the world in which it is, nor the things next to which it lies, nor those with which it is in the world. A relationship in the proper sense of the world is a link established from the inside to something external. Relations that can only exist where there is an inside, where there is that dynamic center from which all activity springs, yada, yada, yada. That's...
Dude, you need to, so this whole past semester, we've been reading predominantly Heidegger.
Oh, man.
You need to read, the dude is just, it's this time, this not the whole thing, just this specific part you just read, it's that times 1,000. Just absolute inanity. And what's really funny about what you just read is that the paragraph right after it, he says, this then is the first point. World is a field of relations. It's like, that's all I needed to say, buddy. Like, you could have condensed it right there. Like, and even then he keeps going on. He's like, to have a world means to be in the midst of and to be the bearer of a field of relations. Yeah. So, okay, we get it.
It's so unnecessary too. Like, his point
Yeah.
is just that, like, humans doing philosophy is like another layer on top of what animals can do.
Right. It reads like someone who's given a word count for an essay. So,
it really does.
Need to meet that word count. But yeah, no, so the animals and the crow who can't see the grasshopper until it moves.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, the environment, right? It's like you have an environment and a world, but you have an environment. The humans have an environment and a world, and our environment might be thought of as the strictly physical, whereas our world encompasses both the physical and the spiritual reality.
Yes. And philosophy is stepping out of the world into reality, into the environment.
Exactly. And he even says too that philosophy doesn't abandon the environment, rather it embraces the whole world.
And it says it looks at something in the environment and goes, what's like the essence of this? It goes like, what really is kombucha?
Right, exactly.
Which again,
like he says, all the questions of philosophy impossible to be answered. You can't answer any question in philosophy. In fact, it's almost the nature of a philosophical question that it can't be answered.
Yeah.
But if you can get a little bit closer to the reality or to the truth, you're doing philosophy. Right? Yeah.
And if it's true leisure, you're not bothered by that.
Exactly. And if anything, because it stems from wonder, and just you getting closer, it gives you that joy because you are that much closer to reality, and it gives you that joy because you know it's still a mystery. Right?
Yeah. And he says wonder is the longing for knowledge, but not the ignorance of resignation. Like, it's not saying like, oh no, we don't know anything for us. It's like, we don't know anything that's beautiful because we have so much more to go. Very Socratic. Yeah. And that's where Pieper and Popper come together. Right. In holy union. Yeah. Because we all love Socrates.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, then he makes this good point too about the spirit, right? That the spirit is the condition. So, no, there is a pre-existing reality, right? And the spirit is in relation to that reality, which is directly opposed to Heidegger, who says that each human being makes their own world, right? Since you're able to behold something, and since you can't know that anything exists outside of your perception of it, you're the creator of your own world. Like, man is the ultimate essence. But Pieper says, yeah, screw you, buddy. You don't know what I'm talking about. Actually, there is a divinity, there is a reality, and it's only because we have a reality that we can relate to that reality, and that's what our spirit does.
And he says that knowing something and being it are the same thing. Yes. And there's this idea of like self-similarity, where, no, that's not it. This idea of, I can't remember what it's called. It's too many kombuchas deep. Yeah. But that like, in order to understand something, like technically, like neurologically, what's happening is that you're like simulating it in your mind. And Pieper kind of like glosses over this in a little bit too high of a order of analysis. But like, there's not just like we don't understand something and then we do understand it. Yeah. Like, it's out there and then all of a sudden it's both out there and in here at the same time and we're being it. It's like, our knowledge is always, especially philosophical knowledge, he'd agree with that. Yeah. Is conditional, or not conditional, but it's imperfect.
Yes.
And constantly getting better. And so like we don't just have we aren't just like being it. We're like getting better and better at being it.
We're contemplating it.
We're contemplating.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. He also says too that spirit is the ability to comprehend the world. So our soul is what gives us the ability to relate to it. So our soul is what gives us the ability to philosophize. And to go back to what you were saying earlier, that this was quite a while ago, but that the human being is physical and spiritual, and that when we die, we're not just spirit, and we're not just, the full understanding of everything, because that's God. God is the spirit who doesn't wonder, because he has all the knowledge, but we, since we have our bodies, since we're imperfect, even in the afterlife, we will still have that wonder, we will still have that desire to know more, even though we'll have the fullest knowledge we ever had. Which I think is, he even talks about the beatific vision. That's spot on for the beatific vision, right? It's that in the beatific vision, I don't know if Protestant doctrine is the same thing, at least for Catholic doctrine. The beatific vision, you will have the fullest happiness and wonder and love you ever had at the same time, wanting more, right? You're never going to be it. Like you'll be, it's almost a contradiction. You're fully satisfied while still being satisfied, right? It's like,
continually being.
Yeah, it's like, in other words, you're never going to get bored of looking at the beatific vision. It's never going to be, okay, I've seen it all, yeah, I'm done. I'm good, that was cool.
It's like fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, he says he had a vision of heaven one time, and it was like that.
Really?
Where it's like, yes.
It's a good sign.
Yeah, but, it was a while ago.
Okay.
Where it's like, not only is everything, like, unimaginably good, but it's always getting better, and we're always working to make things better. Yeah. And, like, we're constantly engaged in like a joyful pursuit of even more goodness.
Right. So. Funny, it makes me think that the three theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity. Charity is one that will never be gone, because there's no reason for faith and hope once you're there with the beatific vision with God, right?
Sure.
But charity always remains, and it's funny because charity is akin to love, right? It's never going to be gone. In the same way, philosophy, which is the love of wisdom, philosophy is never going to go away. We're always going to have that love of wisdom. We're always going to have that desire to know more while at the same time and knowing more than we've ever known.
Interesting.
Which is I don't know, it's a pretty compelling and beautiful idea, right?
Yeah.
That like,
I always thought that like, at some point we reach the fullness of wisdom, and like in heaven we just like,
right, but
there's no.
I would say the fullness of wisdom, like when obviously we can't know, but when we're in heaven, we're gonna, hopefully if we get there, I pray that we do, we'll have, in the same way that like we'll fully love God, we'll also continue to love Him more. Like it sounds like a contradiction. It sounds like it has to be one or the other, but I think in the same way, you can have the fullness of wisdom while still, because if God is wisdom itself, truth itself, love itself, and if we're continually, if we're never getting bored of Him, if we're always loving Him, and if it's always getting better, it would seem to me that we're always loving Him more, right? More.
Sure.
So it seems like even though we'll fully love Him, there's still going to be more,
And maybe that means like God is everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's infinity, let's say.
Right.
And we are like finite creatures, maybe, hopefully, well, inevitably immortal, yet still finite creatures.
Right.
And heaven is the continually like pouring on of more knowledge of God. And the more you know God, the more you love Him. And it's a constant, just continual improvement of that.
While at the same time being totally, like, full.
Content. Yes.
Right.
Well, this is as far as I've read, so can you take us home?
So where did you stop?
The end of the third. So I didn't read the fourth.
Alright. So luckily for you, the fourth is just his. So he I always say basically, but I'll try and say basically, in the fourth part, he talks about how, in the philosophical acts, he kind of does a little synthesis, that philosophy is our realization of our relationship to the world and where we stand in the world, right? So it's the wonderment, the beholding of the world we're in, and also our realization of our place in it and how it all connects. And this is where he talks about that religion is what gives philosophy the backdrop it needs to do philosophy. So religion is what gives you your interpretation of reality, and from there you philosophize. And he says that currently he uses the word unveiling, so that in the beginning there has to be some sort of tradition or doctrine that's unveiled. Similar to what we were talking about earlier with the intellect, right? And how you're given this morality, intellect receives it, and then the ratio can work to develop it. In a similar fashion, you're given an unveiling of spiritual reality, and from there you can use philosophy to uncover that reality, right? And so he talks about how currently in today's day, the predominant tradition is the Christian one, and if any, that's the only cult that really exists, is the Christian cult, the Christian tradition. Therefore, that should be the one that should, he says it's right, but also since it's right, it should inform our philosophy. And he even references Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all of them giving quotes saying that, yeah, the reality of the world has been given to us through religion, right? And we know that the gods or God have that handing down of reality to us, and from there we can do philosophy. So he says, a previously handed down interpretation of the world stands before all philosophizing as a kind of doctrine always already spoken, from which philosophy gets a spark. So you could almost think about it as the handing down, the interpretation is similar to the intellect, and philosophy is similar to the ratio, even though philosophy is not really an activity of the ratio, it's more activity of the intellect, right? The beholding, the contemplating. So then he talks about wisdom, the importance of wisdom, and that theology is an interpretation of revelation, and that the essential relationship between philosophy and theology is that theology always precedes philosophy, and not only chronologically, but also in the sense of an original relationship. A given interpretation of the world that sees the world as a whole, out of which philosophy springs forth. Philosophy then is essentially bound up with theology. No philosophy is in existence which does not receive its first impulse and impetus from some previously existing, uncritically accepted interpretation of the world. And he does say, okay, so religion, the interpretation of the world, it doesn't have to be Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever. It could be something like rationalism, right? But any theory of the reality of the world, you could classify as sort of religion, right? So even he talks about the French Revolution, we talked about earlier, right, where they try to manufacture cultic celebrations, right? And ultimately their view of the world is that it's all about reason. Reason is the God we hold up, right? And that creates an interpretation of the world out of which you get philosophers who, in the Enlightenment, you get all these nutjob philosophers who talk about philosophy is only good for its utility. Religion is a crock of rot, right? So you get...
This is what Bacon says.
Yeah.
I hear Bacon sucks.
Nice.
Because he says, Bacon tries to take science and say, it's like power.
Right.
It's like what C.S. Lewis says, it's like magic.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And then he goes on to say that, okay, so theology, it's not like theology has something that philosophy is trying to get. Rather, they have their own specific sectors, you could say. And, what does he say? Yeah, so the theologian's business is to defend the meaning of the word of religion on the basis of traditional truth. And then the philosopher, in his questioning of things, is able on his own part to reach a knowledge by the light of that word that would otherwise remain hidden to him. So in other words, the theologian in theology defends the meaning of reality, the interpretation of reality, right? So theologians' job is to defend Christianity, Catholicism, whatever religion is, to defend their interpretation of reality. And the philosopher's job is to, utilizing that interpretation of reality, get closer to some aspect of reality, if that makes sense. So utilizing the idea that from the Christian worldview, right, you can talk about ethics and morality, and maybe then the philosopher, knowing that, from the Christian worldview, knowing that fornication is wrong, the philosopher can then say, well, why is it wrong? Knowing that it's already wrong, he can arrive at a fuller answer of perhaps why it's wrong, even if he won't be able to get the full answer right. It's funny because he even makes this claim that he says you would think that, okay, well, if you're just working in a Christian tradition and doing Christian philosophy, you're just gonna have all the answers, right? It's just gonna be, oh, well, this. But he says, actually, if you're working in a tradition, questions and answers become more complicated. And he gives an example. The simple answer to problems. This is not the case. Even though Christian philosophy thinks with reference to completely undoubted certainties, nevertheless, it is still true that Christian philosophy can more purely realize the true sense of wonder or astonishment, which is based on not knowing. For example, Thomas Aquinas, who said that the characteristic mark of Christian philosophy is not that it has easy solutions, but rather that it possesses the sense of mystery to a higher degree than any other philosophy. For the believing person, indeed, the truths of Christianity are inconceivable in a very peculiar way. Inconceivable, of course, are the very truths of reason, but what is distinctive about the truths of Christendom are that despite the revelation, they remain hidden nonetheless. So, for example, the truth that God became man, that's a Christian truth, but there's no simple answer to that. Like, what does it mean that God is man? Like, the greatest theologians in the world can't answer that. There's still something left in the mysteries of Christianity that can be discussed by philosophy. Like, what does it mean to take on sin? What does it mean to ransom oneself for the sake of everyone? You know, you can still ask, like, why is there purgatory? Why is there hell? What is hell? What is heaven?
Is there purgatory?
Okay, fair enough. What is hell? What is heaven? You know, you can still ask these questions in a philosophical manner. He says that you might say, okay, well, that's all fair enough, but how can Christian philosophy be better than non-Christian? Because it's not going to give us any like viable solutions to anything important in the world, right? And he says, well, perhaps a greater truth is present in the Christian philosophy's ability to see the world in its truly mysterious character. In other words, Christian philosophy recognizes the wonder, the mystery of the world, right?
Yes.
It beholds the ever mysterious element of the reality of the world. For example, the Trinity, right? Mm-hmm. That's completely mysterious, right? So it accepts the wonderment that is necessitated by philosophy in a way that no other philosophy does. Yeah, go ahead.
The goal isn't to solve the mystery or figure out what's really going on.
Right.
Because the mystery is inherent in reality.
Yes.
So the reason Christianity is so successful is because it allows us to appreciate, maybe wonder at, and marvel at the mystery better than any other.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Which makes sense, right? Because there's something... One of the reasons I like the idea of the Trinity is that it's not at all intuitive. It's not a simple explanation of reality at all. If God is infinite, necessarily he must be unknowable in some way. And the Trinity is one of those ways it's unknowable, right? We can't possibly comprehend the Trinity. It almost seems to me that, like, not that what is mysterious is true, but in the world we live in, that which is mysterious is probably a closer approximation to reality than when it's just simple. Yeah. Right? For example, go back to your thing with science, right? If you just, this is the answer, boom, science figured it out. That's probably not actually the case, right? Mm-hmm. It's probably more complicated than that.
Well, yeah, it always is.
Exactly.
Like, maybe it's not that mysterious things are necessarily true, but the truth of something deep like that is going to be mysterious.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So he says, even with Christian philosophy does not become any easier. It's still difficult. Okay, so then he talks about himself, we can skip over. Christian philosophizing gains an enrichment of its content. Its Christian character is thereby made stronger and more authentic. Okay. Oh yeah, here's something interesting that I like. So then he says, okay, with all that, you might say, well, isn't philosophy redundant in Christianity, right? Don't you just need faith and theology, right? You have your theology, you have your religion, you have all the answers. Why do you need philosophy? It's a good objection. And he says that for salvation, philosophy is not necessary. However, the Christian cannot expect from philosophy an answer to the question about human salvation. He cannot philosophize in order to satisfy his expectations. To lose oneself in problems, the mark of philosophy, this so-called existential identification with the problems of thought is foreign to the believer. In Thomas Aquinas, you can see a certain cheerfulness about not being able to understand, like a sense of humor. Philosophy is just as necessary and just as superfluous as the natural fulfillment of the human being is necessary or unnecessary. To do philosophy is to realize the naturally essential inclination of the human mind toward totality. So basically, even in the Christian mindset where you have all the answers, to philosophize is to recognize one's place in the world, to search out where we stand in relation to God and the world, right? So even Christians do philosophy because we're trying to figure out, even though we have like the answers, we're still trying to figure out where we stand in regard to the whole, and we're appreciating that too, which is like what leisure is too. So then his final point, Christianity is reality, not just a teaching. The problem of a Christian philosophy is not just to figure out whether and in what manner natural knowledge of the world can be joined in theory to supernatural faith. Rather, what is important is whether and in what manner the philosophizing of someone who roots his thinking in Christian reality can become a truly Christian philosophizing. Yeah. To which he says, you have to have certain qualities as a human being and as a person to do philosophy and to be Christian. Christianity is a reality that will form and mold the person the more completely in all his abilities, the more he opens himself up to it. Basically, he concludes on, there's a virtuous cycle at work. Mm-hmm. The one who's between Christianity and philosophy, the one who is truly Christian will be better able to do philosophy because he'll have a backdrop of reality, a theory of reality, interpretation of reality on which to do philosophy. And since he has that backdrop, he'll more appreciate philosophy and he'll have more of a sense of wonder. Similarly, the more he does philosophy, the more he encounters the wonder and mystery of the world, which drives him back to Christianity and to God. So there's philosophy and Christianity are not distinct. If anything, they're almost essentially connected, right? To be Christian is to philosophize, and to do philosophy is to be Christian, if you're really doing them, in other words. So that's kind of the note he concludes on. Yeah, he concludes on, the Christian philosopher is he who allows the Christian faith to be real in himself. On the basis of this relatedness, then, and not merely knowing and learning, but suffering and experiencing reality, will he win Christian truth for his own and go on to philosophize about the natural principles of the world's reality and the meaning of human life. Yeah, the Christian aspect of philosophizing is also being willing to suffer. Yeah. So learning about God and also suffering with him.
Yeah, and like he said, that suffering, it's not just hard work. Mm-hmm. In fact, the ultimate expression of suffering, it's not hard to do at all.
Right.
Like if it's from like the ultimate depth of love.
Right.
Then
the real what's good is the embracing of the suffering, no matter where it stands in relationship to hardship. What's important is how much you embrace it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This was good.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Final thoughts? Ratings?
I would say we do a scale of 10, right?
Yeah, 1 to 10.
I thought leisure was. I mean, there's a ton that I disagree with, mm-hmm. especially in the philosophical act.
But science, right?
Yeah. That's just that's okay. He's not a philosopher of science.
Yeah.
I feel like there were so many concepts in here that like I needed like to explore, mm-hmm. like this idea of liberal arts versus servile arts.
Yeah.
It's so like it's not he didn't come up with it.
Yeah.
Everyone's always like talking about it, but I have not heard like so clear an exposition of like, what really do you like? Why should anyone care about non-servile arts?
Yeah.
Or, yeah. So I think the conversation he brought up was really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have any final?
Yeah, I would say I really liked the idea of the intellectus and the ratio, specifically the idea that. So I hadn't really thought about it, but specifically in 19th century, 18th century philosophy, there emerges this idea of what I think is very prevalent in today's culture of working to get something, right? It's all about the battle to prove your point, right? It's the amount of effort and work you put into proving your point shows the validity of it, right? You're uncovering some aspect of the truth, right? You're delving, you're figuring out, and there's value there. But the idea of the intellectus where you just know something, it's just given to you. That really resonated with me because I think the intellectus explains most of my, or it provides most of my interpretations of morality. Most of my interpretations of morality I think are just part of my intellectus. They're just there. I just know them. I just know they're the case. And the idea of contemplating it and just beholding reality, even though it seems counterintuitive that you can perceive it without doing work, I think as far as ideas go, I think it's spot on that contemplation and just holding reality, accepting your place in it, finding joy in that, I think there's real value to that. And obviously to connect back to his whole thing, like leisure, the idea of being at peace and acceptance in your place in the world, and the idea that work and utility and how much you can measure the usefulness of something, the idea that that's not the end all be all, and that actually what's important is ultimately connecting with God. I don't think he explicitly says that, but that's kind of the idea. He ends on that in the first essay with the cultic celebration, the worship, right? That ultimately we are geared towards connection with God, and that can really only come about through that contemplative, leisurely state. Because if you are in that, I'm going to say it again, ascetic state, right, that restlessness, you're never going to want to come to God, right? You're never going to want to set your place. It's all going to be about retreating, finding activity, finding distractions, finding a way to get away from God and who you are. But that the acceptance and embracing of your relationship with God, that's where leisure is to be found. And worship and celebration and festival, the effortlessness therein, I really like. I also do like really the idea of it. Something good has nothing to do with the effort put into it. It's just good for its own sake. And that if anything, the closer you are to God, the easier things become, right? It's more effortless to do penance or to practice virtue or to love your enemy. So I really like that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely clarified my view on leisure. And I'll probably, I'm never going to have another vacation where I don't think about it in terms of Pieper's leisure.
Right.
So I would say I would give him a 7.1.
That's funny. I was going to give him a 7.
Okay.
So I think we're on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my scale is a little bit prorated, a bit higher than yours. I feel like you liked this book better than I did.
Yeah. Well, see, for me, it's like if it's above a 6, I think it's pretty good. Like,
sure.
Obviously 10 is best of the best. 9 is holy cow, that was really good. 8 is phenomenal, and 7 is that was really good.
Okay.
So
for me, if we ever read anything that's below a 5, we've failed. We should never read.
Amen. Yeah.
That's like where the scale kind of starts.
Yeah. I mean, we did read what's his face, Nietzsche. I think you gave him a low rating. I gave him, I think, a 6 just because it's valuable to read something like that.
Dude, I think I gave him a low rating. If I had to rate him again, I would give him a high rating.
Yeah.
Like, Nietzsche just dude, he ages well in my mind.
What we read though, absolute crackpot.
For sure.
Yeah.
But when I'm reading him, I'm like, wow, he really is, holy crap.
Yeah.
He hates Christians, he hates Jews.
Absolute vitriol. Yeah.
And as the time goes on, I kind of forget about the insanity.
Yeah.
And just what sticks with me is the places where he's just really spot on, or the places where he's wrong, but wrong in a really informative way.
Yeah.
Where it's by addressing that, I'm really, really know. So I really like I have a very positive conception of Nietzsche now.
Yeah, I have no time for him. I think he's an absolute whack job.
None?
Yeah.
None at all?
I think
Dude.
I like to read him because if you read Nietzsche, you're really well set up to understand the basis and catalyst for most philosophy onwards.
Sure.
Right? Like he provides quite a good framework. And I think in all seriousness, his position on Christianity and religion in particular has set up most of where we are today in terms of the kind of, it's all nonsense. I mean, we even see it later with Marx, like opium of the masses, right? Mm-hmm. He really fuels the fire for
Marx was before Nietzsche.
Yeah. Really?
I know, right?
Oh, yeah. For some reason, I always conflate Marx with like the Russian Revolution. So I always conflate him with 1900s, 1910s. But he's like what 1820s?
Yeah, he's early. He's something like that. He might even be before Darwin.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure before Darwin. Yeah. Regardless, maybe not Marx, but other philosophers. You see kind of more of the dismissal of religion as kind of just foolishness.
Yes.
But
and the whole God is dead thing.
Yes.
I mean, that's
yeah. Definitely like right on for that part. Yeah, God is dead and we kill him. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and people misunderstand that, but he's like
no, right. Most people think that he's being jubilant.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in some sense he might be one of these cultural Christians. Like he might be like Richard Dawkins, where he's like absolute lunatics, losers, fools. But when it's all gone, he's like, oh shoot, we actually kind of needed that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because he says that man can create their own morals, and people also misunderstand that and say and think he's saying people can find like morality, like what we would call good on their own without God. What he really means is that like people can define morality for themselves, which means like people can rape and pillage and think it's okay.
Right.
Like that's what he's saying.
But then he also does too, like he prays for the coming of the Antichrist too. So there's that, you know, like
it's just like no one's perfect.
Calling on Zarathustra, to bring the true, because Christ didn't actually save us from our sins. Christ actually gave us guilt. Right, Christ embedded us with guilt and terror, but the Antichrist is going to get rid of all this nonsense, right? And we're going to be saved from all this honey baloney about love and sacrifice and all that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you can't be right about everything.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, right. No one's perfect, as they say.
Yeah. Well,
cool.
This has been Facts and Smiles.
I'm Max,
and I'm Miles, and I hope you remember that it's morally wrong to have sex with a child.